I'm Ron Gallagher at Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy, and you're listening to HYPERSPEED Radio. You don't have to live in pain, whether you're running, swimming, playing a team sport, or just everyday fitness. We bridge a gap between medicine and strength and conditioning to help you break through at MVPT.
What's up, everybody? I am not Ron Gallagher. I am his trusted companion, apparently, Madeline DeAngelo. Ron Gallagher, CEO, owner, El Presidente of Max Velocity PT. This is episode 14-ish of his brand new podcast. 14. And he is trusting me after an unaired episode of us together, so he has no feedback on if people like me or not. He has no idea what I have in my list of questions, but he has...
Yep, for the record, no knowledge of any of these questions coming up.
Not one clue, and yet he has entrusted me to interview him today on this podcast with some questions I've wanted to know. Now, this is a big deal because the only other person that Ron has trusted to interview himself on the podcast to this point
has been me.
Is Ron Gallagher. So this is a big job, people. I'm up for the task. Okay, Ron, it's nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me as your host.
Yes, the guest host. Hoping not to lose my job today.
We'll see how it all goes, but I'm honored that I have the opportunity to interview you. Ron and I have known each other for a while. I was on the podcast last month and we talked about my story, and this is an opportunity to talk about Ron's story and some questions that we've worked together for a really long time, but there are some questions about your history and how you've gotten into all this that we've never really discussed that I would love to know.
Okay.
And maybe we'll get into some of Ron's the inner workings of the Gallagher mind.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we're just going to kick it off, and we're going to go all the way back, and I'm going to ask you where you grew up.
I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay, and what was that like? Meth? Shout out Breaking Bad? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that this episode.
Well, I mean, we can carry that theme through. Albuquerque, when I left Albuquerque, it was a small city trying to be a big city.
Okay.
And there wasn't a tremendous amount of opportunities there. So I knew that I had to get out. And it was,
at what age do you think you were aware of that necessity?
I would guess 8 to 10.
Wow, it's pretty young.
I just knew that this is not how things should be going. And I left to go to UNLV, and I went back for one summer and haven't been back since.
Wow. You have no family left there or anything?
I have like uncles and cousins and stuff, but the only times I've been back is my 10-year and my 20-year.
High school reunion?
High school reunion.
How'd those go?
Awesome. I had a great time.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of leaving and coming back. So it's more special for me than it is the people who live there. And the overwhelming majority of my classmates, I think, still live there. So they're not that much into it.
Okay. But you get to roll up like Big Pimpin'.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Do you bring the dogs to the high school reunion?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No, but I do have pictures.
So
every time somebody whips out pictures of their kids, I'm like,
you bring the dogs out.
Here's my dogs.
So you grew up in Albuquerque until college age, and that was the first time that you left and the last time you lived there. So college.
Yes.
And what made you choose UNLV? I'm going off the script here, but I'm interested. They had a good PT program? You always knew that's what you wanted?
No.
Here we go. Getting juicy.
I feel like the juice is already starting. Not a lot of people know this, but I went to UNLV on a cheerleading scholarship.
Shut up.
For real.
Give us a move right now. Give us a herky right now. I'm shook. I didn't know this.
I know. I don't share that often, and it's I wouldn't say that it's something that I'm embarrassed about, but it's definitely not something I share up front.
This is like the coolest part of your story. I can't believe we're only like 5 minutes into this.
Yeah, I didn't
Cheerleading scholarship, full ride. You were like a base?
They paid for like 80-90%. It was a sizable.
You were like a base position, and you threw people around.
In college you have partners, and I think there was 8 or so men and women partners.
I actually, I know a couple male cheerleaders.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but wow. Oh my gosh. I just love this story so much. Did you do it all 4 years?
I did.
So if I go back in the UNLV archives, I could find some footage of
100%.
Ronnie G on the football field. Oh my God.
I'll bring you some pictures if you like. I've got one of those old school like aluminum trash can full of cheerleading pictures.
How come we don't have those framed in the clinic? Just you on the track? You're selling yourself short. Wow, super interesting. So when did you start that sport?
I went to Hawaii. I went to New Orleans. I went to NCAA basketball game.
Oh my God.
We were in the Las Vegas Bowl, so I cheered in a bowl game. Saw the country.
Can you give us a cheer?
No.
No. Okay. He draws the line at a cheer, everyone. I'm sorry. I did my best.
That's pushing it.
I'm loving this. Okay.
But I have tons of friends and relationships that are still alive to this day as a result of that experience. And actually coaching was born in that. So the summer I went back, I was an elite cheerleading coach, taught tumbling and taught basically body alignment, and essentially started my growth as a coach then.
Okay. Oh my God. There's a lot to unpack here. So I just want to start with how old you were when you first got into cheerleading. Was that your first sport?
So I was what do you call it? Hornswoggled. I was bamboozled. So this is what happened. My best friend was a cheerleader, and for a couple years she was like, you need to do this. You need to do this. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. And she was like, okay, fine. Just go to one practice and I'll never bug you about it again. So I showed up at this practice. It was in the summer before my senior year, like right in the beginning of the summer. And the coach that I ended up developing a really great relationship with and ended up coaching under him had two of his students that he works with who cheered for UNM there.
Wow.
Little bit of makeup, little bit of hair. I was like, this is looking not so bad already. Like, maybe I can do this. Okay, first move is you're going to put your hands on her hips and you're going to throw her up, and then you're going to catch her. And there goes the bicycle. That's cool. Anyway, so my hand is on her butt and I'm like, this is probably not so bad.
Okay. We're going to move on.
So no, I was amazed at the athleticism and just like how cool some of the stuff they did was. They did some really high level partner type stuff, and
cheer is actually it's one of the things that I actually just emailed the Las Vegas Circus Center right across the street from you to try to take tumbling lessons, because I just think cheerleading is like, I've always thought it was just how cool. It was so explosive. You have so much control. You can throw your body around like that, and it's like a superpower. So
yeah, and I was on the sideline for football games, on the sideline for basketball games, and just
I think we should update your business cards. Ron Gallagher, head cheerleader. How's it sound? Okay, cool. So
wow.
So you started this in high school is when you really got
a senior year in high school.
That's pretty impressive that starting as a senior, you could then get a scholarship the next year.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So I put a ton of work in. I knew that people were going to be watching me, because like in my school, dudes didn't do that.
Do you know how many people were in your graduating class in high school?
The high school I went to is the largest graduating class in all of New Mexico. I want to say 3,000.
In your graduating class at your school?
Oh, no, that's the school, right? Probably 750.
Okay, that's sizable.
Yeah,
all eyes on Ron.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, so what was pretty cool was I didn't tell anybody. The girls didn't tell anybody. It was a total surprise. And the first, what do you call it? Assembly. The first assembly of the year, I actually took off my football jersey because I was playing football, and had this polo shirt that I wore underneath, and did a routine with the girls and did a couple of tricks with the girls, and the school went absolutely bananas. And it happened to be the same time as the voting for homecoming court.
Oh my! So you just wrapped that all up.
I just parlayed that into a homecoming court.
Wow! Oh my God! I didn't realize I was talking with Albuquerque's finest.
Yes.
I would have been nervous before if I knew all this. Okay, so
you're going back.
So let's rewind just a little bit before the cheerleading, because it sounds like you were also playing football and I assume running. Do I assume incorrectly?
Yes.
Color me a fool.
Football, baseball, basketball, soccer.
Okay, what was the first sport you played? Can you
Definitely
remember?
Baseball.
And you liked it? Loved it?
I'm absolutely positively in love with baseball from the moment I saw it to this moment today. There's not a sport that I don't know more than baseball.
Okay. So baseball, you also said football, and what was the other one?
Soccer.
Basketball
and soccer.
And you played all of those from, what age were you when you started with baseball?
Probably 5 or 6.
Okay, and you just played all the way through all these sports, just collectively kind of rotating and whatever.
Yes.
Okay, and so obviously cheerleading is what carried you through college, and that's an awesome trade.
Right.
It
was when I learned, when I really bought in that I wasn't going to play college baseball.
That actually, okay, so let's talk about that. It's actually a question that I have at the end of my list, but it flows well here, and I think it's an important point. Something that stuck out to me when the roles were reversed and you were Ron over here and I was being interviewed.
Right.
And we were talking about when I was swimming and the realization I had to come to that, I wasn't ever going to be Miss Decorated Olympic college swimmer, whatever. I should expand my breadth of knowledge instead of just attacking this one thing. It's not necessarily realistic.
Right.
And that admission to yourself that maybe you are not part of that 1% elite that is going to dominate the sport and get to play forever and those kinds of things. So how important is that to take that moment of recognition that you had with baseball or other sports and realize that maybe you should try something else? I mean, at what point do you decide that you're going to stop beating that one drum and play another instrument?
Yeah, that was a really tough pill to swallow. And really the reason why I went into athletic training was because I was a really good hitter. I was a really good fielder, but I had some personality conflicts with my varsity coach. And there's a long story past to that. But that ultimately ended up hurting me. I found out later that I was a lot more recruited than I knew, and didn't end up getting recruited. And I went to a couple of showcase type things and performed well, made some good contacts with coaches, but they were going to take me down the JC Division 2, Division 3 route, which you eventually transfer over. And, one of the things I think about in my life, people ask you, do you have anything you regret? I still have this feeling in the back of my mind, what would have happened if I would have truly pursued baseball. And because I jumped off that track and jumped on this cheerleading track, I got to UNLV, and ultimately I wanted a Division I education. So in my mind at the time I was reaching my goal, I just did it in a different avenue.
Totally. Yeah.
So I jumped track and ended up actually obliterating the rest of my baseball season because my coach was so mad that I left to go try out at UNLV, and ended up being a big drama situation when I got back. And but at that point I had already made the squad.
Deal was done, right? And let me ask you this, because I think you mentioned that your cheerleading coach was actually one of your more influential coaches. You ultimately coached under him, her?
Him. I mean, I wouldn't say he was one of my mentors, but that's just where the love of coaching started.
What about him inspired that in you?
I mean, I guess it's part of it's halfway. I don't want to be like my baseball coach, and I would rather be like one of these types of coaches. And then I find myself you're going to be a coach. So, I just have always gravitated towards some sort of coaching, and that's been a constant theme. I taught, So I worked all summer, and then an opportunity was presented to the cheerleading program that there was a high school in town who was looking for some part-time coaching help. And so I ended up coaching chaparral for 2 or 3 years.
Nice.
And, started building a program there.
Is that the first place you really coached?
That was,
and this is pre-clinic?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, way before.
Yeah, this is, at this point, physical therapy is still 3 years away.
So what did you study at UNLV?
I have a bachelor's degree in sports injury management, which is essentially kinesiology.
Okay. And a minor in fashion design.
I wish.
Okay. So, and then you went to PT school then immediately after?
No.
Long break? Short break?
I took a year.
Okay.
To get my grades right.
Been there.
I did not have the grades to get in when I graduated. And at that time, which they don't have now, calculus and organic chemistry were requirements.
Oh, those are doozies.
Yeah. So
that OChem will get you, right, T-Flash?
I got a B in calculus, and I got a B- in OChem.
And that was enough.
Apparently.
Okay, well,
I got in.
Hey, here we are. Right over here. These get degrees. Okay, so, and then
I only take it 3 times. But
PT school happened where?
UNLV.
Okay.
So I have, at the time they were offering a master's degree in science of physical therapy.
When you started originally your undergrad at UNLV, did you know that this was the trajectory you were going to take professionally?
No.
What did you hope to do with
broke? Broke is broke.
What did you hope to do with kinesiology at the time?
Well, I knew that I wasn't going to play baseball, so I thought I should work with athletes.
Okay.
And ended up working in the athletic program at UNLV, and knew that being in the training room wasn't for me. Like, I didn't want to work with these prima donna asshole type athletes. But I was broke. And somebody had mentioned that a physical therapy clinic was looking for a tech, and that athletic training was very similar to physical therapy. And so I went and applied, and she gave me the job. And I remember calling my mom the day after right after my very first shift. Within an hour, I told her, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like, I knew right then and there after 1 hour, this is what I want to do forever. And
what a great feeling.
Yeah, I've been full speed ahead work-wise ever since.
How long between that moment and when you opened your clinic?
Ooh. So I was a tech for 3 years before I got into PT school, and then PT school was 3 years. And then I worked 10 years as a grunt. I was a clinic manager for 6 years of those 10. And then just decided that the time was right for me to do my own thing.
Very cool.
And to do this a different way.
Is that when you feel you deviated from the path of normal?
I was already doing that, and I was already getting flack. I mean, my bean counters above me were saying, I wasn't providing enough billing. Like, there wasn't enough charges. There wasn't enough. There wasn't a variety of charges. They wanted 6 charges, and I was only giving them 4. And if you multiply those 2 units times the number of people a day, times the number of people in a week, times the number of months, that's the revenue that was missing from the clinic. And I was getting flack for that, like lots of flack.
That seems like a good time to go off and do Ron things.
Yeah, so I was like, I had just came back from a marketing class, like a physical therapy continuing education course. And the whole time I'm in this course, I'm like, I could do this clinic. So when I got back, I pitched it to my boss and wanted to do a part-time version of what I'm doing right now under his head. And he said, that'll never work. That'll never make money.
Probably the best thing he could have said. You ended up doing it for you.
And I put my notice in because I knew at that moment that he didn't believe in me.
Yeah.
That I
and that you couldn't grow together.
Right.
That's bad news.
That I was going to always be his little, in his shadow. And I was just like, that's my cue.
Yeah, I think that's great, though. From those moments, we kind of thrive. Okay, so let's kind of switch gears a little bit. I'm actually very surprised to learn about how little of your early history involves running, being that that's like a huge staple of the clinic.
Yeah, so when I became a center manager, I also started running personally.
Okay.
And
what year was this? Do you know,
that would
roughly?
Have been mid early 2000s.
Okay.
So like 2005, 2008, something like that.
Hashtag Free Britney era. Yeah, big time.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I went to this continuing education course at the University of Virginia and came back with my head blown off with how much information that is out there on the science and the skill of running. And so I immersed myself in all those books and all that lore and just got incredibly educated in a very, very short period of time. And I ended up going to that course 4 years in a row. And every time I went and came back, I was exponentially a better clinician.
That's awesome.
Armed with all kinds of information.
Learned something new every time.
I mean, learned tons.
Yeah.
And then that led me down these little roads, these little pockets of information that became the seed that grew into maximum velocity. And so I was running a lot myself, marathons, eventually became Ironman, and at the same time was treating a bunch of the UNLV track athletes. And finally became an assistant coach over there, and that really sort of propelled me into this dedicated coach role.
Yeah. How did you find your transition to running after so much experience with almost every other sport? What was different about running for you, if anything?
Well, my dad kind of dabbled in running, 5Ks, 10Ks. My best friend at the time was a huge marathoner, qualified for Boston, and he's running ultras now.
You want to shout him out?
Big shout out to my man, Carl.
What's up, Carl?
Love that guy. But yeah, so him and I were roommates in PT school and continued to be super, super close. And we just could talk running. And
would you run together? You would train and stuff?
Well, we would start at the same time. But
That's awesome.
he went to University of Virginia with me.
Okay.
And he ended up trying to kind of specialize somewhat in his community as the running specialist there too. And it was just something that we could always relate to. And, we always just discussed things and went over patients together, and it just became my
part
thing.
of the culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And the more runners I treated, the more interested I was in helping them, because I believe that the running medicine is superior to what we were taught in school.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like if I'm getting somebody from injured back to running, a traditional patient in a traditional place would be discharged a long time ago.
Okay.
Because the skill to get that person back to running is above and beyond just getting a person that fits the insurance's definition of well. Mm. So getting them back to running became, really, really skilled. And so I just really rally around the challenge of taking these complex physical problems that people have and making them do the hardest thing in our skeleton. And like that process is like super cool to me.
What's the longest race you've competed in?
Ironman.
Ironman is, other people who might not know what that is. I definitely do know what it is, but other people might not.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a full marathon, 26.2 in one sesh.
Those are good times.
Good times.
How many Ironmans did you do? One?
Just one full, but 6 halves.
Oh, okay. How was that experience, that full Ironman? What was that like?
It'll be one of the best things that I ever do in my life. But obviously completing the race is kind of like a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal to do that. But
no, I'm just kidding.
I had so many people tell me that I shouldn't do it. I had so many people tell me that I was going to get hurt, that it's not good for me. And I just wanted to prove everybody wrong. And there was a part of me that kind of believed everybody. And I'll never forget, scurrying around, getting ready for the race. And the way that Ironman Arizona starts is what they call a waiting start. And everybody's just kind of treading water, waiting for the cannon to go off. And I just had this insane calmness just come over me and just know that I'm going to do this. And I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I wasn't, it was like this incredible sense of confidence just was there. And I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah.
And so executing that day, it has some trials and tribulations, obviously, but that's what I get from it the most, is this calm, this confidence, this like so proud of the work that I put in, and it was just about executing at that point.
Do you experience the same sensation when you look at your clinic now?
I have days.
That's cool.
I have moments where, like, especially with COVID, like managing a clinic through the world's worst 17 months, and having a small business and having to put up with the mandates, and what do people think about the mandates, and like, am I helping, am I hurting, am I navigating those waters has made me a totally more confident business person.
Very cool.
Because that was such a hard thing to navigate.
That kind of goes off another question I had that also later, but I think it applies currently. I'm curious what you found to be your biggest adversity, both as a business owner and as an athlete, separately.
Adversity?
Yeah, like what's the most adversity you face? Maybe as a business owner, it's been navigating COVID and having these obstacles and these hurdles that your only choice has been to adapt. And every athlete experiences the same, not the same, but the same sense of adversity at some point in their athletic career.
Right.
You played lots of sports. Was there a glaring moment to you that you really had to come face to face with that?
That's interesting. I would say 45 years old, the more experience I get in this world, the more I realize that what I think about the situation and my own perception of what I'm capable of is probably my biggest limitation. I've already done all the things I've ever set out to do. Like, I didn't necessarily dream of opening my own clinic. I didn't necessarily have that as a goal. But when the opportunity was there, I took it and ran with it. And, I'm 7 years into Maximum Velocity, and there's no other clinics that can say they're 7 years into the type of practice that I'm running in the country. So there's no,
the obstacle is the way.
Yeah. Like where do I take it?
Right.
There's no examples of what it could be.
And on that note, being that you are ahead of the time with the clinic and that you approach your physical therapy from this weightlifting perspective, a mutual patient of Ron's, client of mine that we both work with, was telling a story the other day about how if anything is wrong with you, I mean, this is obviously not totally true, but if anything is wrong with you and you come to Ron, what Ron's going to tell you to do is squat 1,000 pounds. And we all love that about Ron. And I'm curious, so weightlifting being a key factor in your clinic's history and success.
Right.
And what's your personal history with weightlifting? Was it something that you did with your sports growing up, or
100%.
What's your period? Yeah, tell us about Ron in the weight room.
It's always been in my life, and I didn't necessarily ever put it front and center. Weightlifting was a means of playing baseball, playing football, and like summer conditioning and football was like 80% in the weight room. And I remember looking around the room and watching how people did it. You know, how do you squat 1,000 pounds? You know, like this person's 5'6" and this person's 6'4". Like, why is it different for them to squat 1,000 pounds? I remember having that conversation in my head in high school football. And then in college, I'm putting another person above my head. So I always felt like it was really important for we as a group of guys, we didn't have anybody telling us this. We as a group of guys went and strength trained
Took the
each
initiative.
other. Yeah.
Right.
Because we didn't have a strength coach.
Did you also supplement your running with lifting at the time that was prevalent?
Yes. And it's always, but if I had started my Ironman journey today, the clear understanding of where strength training fits into that, I should have been doing things differently.
Hindsight's 20/20.
15 or 20 years ago.
That's okay. We learn as we go.
For sure.
So sorry, finish.
No. So it's always been in the background. It's always been something that I did. And then when I started, I knew that I wanted to teach barbells, and I went down to Texas and hung out with the guys from Starting Strength. And when Coach Ripto gives the initial lecture on why strength training is so important, it's exactly the same lecture I had in physical therapy school.
Nice.
With a little bit of different spin, but the anatomical and physiological concepts are exactly identical. And it was that moment that I realized that we were educated that way, but we turn our back on it because of all these random reasons. We don't, legal reasons, business reasons. Like there's all these reasons why we move away from that strategy. And I'm like, I'm just getting back to the crux of what physical therapists are supposed to do, and that's impart change.
Right.
And, a lot of these other things are not imparting change. So
not lasting change,
all it did was give me fuel to push everyone towards a barbell.
Very cool. Love it. So who would you say was your most influential coach in all of these years of athletic training?
My most influential coach.
Or mentor. All right, so it was me. That's a wrap.
My most influential coach. I am enamored with coaching because I don't feel like I ever had good coaching. So I can't say that I have a coach that I feel coached me the way that I would want to be coached, but I have been around coaches that I want to be coaches like.
Like who?
There's two. The first one is Yvonne Scott, who just retired from UNLV. She's a former Olympian hurdler, 100-meter hurdler for Japan, but worked, 10 or 15 years at UNLV. And the perfect example of how to cultivate an environment of winning and excellence with love and respect.
That's awesome.
And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
And she brought in a coach that I assisted And I actually had the opportunity to assist 2 amazing coaches. And I would jump at a chance to work with either one of them. But Kadivas Robinson, who I plan on having on the show, is a 2-time Olympian. He's now the head coach at Ohio State, and one of the most inspirational, most elevated thinkers I've ever met. And he takes such a different approach to coaching than I ever would, that he taught me so much because of that.
Right.
Like Jabri, who's the second coach, would use heart rate data, hard data. The way that Kadivas grew up was he didn't have any technology. So he does everything by feel. And there's like no data. There's no technology whatsoever. They're exactly in the same place, doing exactly the same stuff, but from a completely different point of view.
Type A and type B kind of vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kadivas can get extra out of the runner because he can tap into their emotions, whereas the data sometimes can be a limiting factor. And so it was enormous to me to see that process happen. And, that's how we had one of our girls surprise everyone and qualify for the Olympic trials. And Kadivas was still running. So that's how I got to go.
Okay.
And he, but he planted seeds in her, and she took them and ran with it and became somebody who qualified for the Olympic trials in America.
Right.
And like, I'll always remember that experience because that wasn't on anyone's radar.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we just kind of fell into that.
I think it's kind of, I don't know about common, but I can kind of relate to being driven towards coaching by the absence of it in your own experience. And I love that you have such great, still finding, even though you didn't personally feel as an athlete, you were coached right, you still took the initiative and the accountability to go and find, you found people you could look up to and could relate to and could strive towards. And I love that.
Thanks.
Okay. So I think I'd love to take we've talked a lot about career stuff, and now let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about like just Ronnie G's gut reactions to things. Okay, let's start with, you have your phone on you right now?
I do.
First thing I'm curious about is, what are the last 3 videos in your YouTube history? He didn't think I was going to say YouTube.
YouTube history.
Do you watch a lot of YouTube?
Yeah, because I have a YouTube channel personally.
Shout out to Ron's business YouTube channel, Max Velocity TV.
And how do you find that?
You go in your history. I expect to have very educational content.
At the bottom right of your screen, click your account and then click my videos, or in that area you can see my history.
Oh, gotcha.
Perfect. Thanks, Travis.
No problem. T-Flush is here.
Okay. My boy. Okay, so there's a fitness person around named Jen Wiederstrom.
Okay.
And she's talking about carb cycling.
Interesting.
So I watched a video on her talking about carb cycling.
Okay.
Because I'm in need of a change here.
Okay.
I have a long-standing patient who is taking up the guitar.
Cool.
And she wanted to build her taste for being in front of an audience, and knows that I watch a lot of
good for her
live videos. So what she's been doing, she's been filming herself playing guitar and then sending it to me through YouTube. And just like getting used to playing in front of people.
Wow, how cool. That's awesome. Is she trying to get famous? Should we shout her out?
I don't know.
Okay. We won't shout her out yet. We'll wait till next week.
She might not want that.
Okay.
But she's building up courage to play in front of a band.
I love that.
Yeah. And
that's so cool.
She chose me to like just listen, and it's been kind of fun. She's played some really cool songs.
She getting good?
She's definitely getting better.
I love it.
And then the third, the one of the top three. The other third was I just took a trip to Nashville, and there was a big thing that happened at one of the shows, at the show that I went to. These two kids were pulled up on stage, and they played their musical idol, who happened to be the artist. Did I tell you the story?
I don't think so.
Long story short is these two kids got pulled up on stage. They played their favorite song of their favorite artist, who happened to be on stage, pulled them on.
How cool.
And they proceeded to absolutely kill it. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever seen at a live show. And the dad has a YouTube channel of guitar instruction.
Nice.
And he dedicated a whole episode to the experience of watching his boys get up on stage with all of their favorite artists.
Yeah.
So that's the third.
That's cool. I knew you were going to have some good stuff on there.
Yeah.
Kind of in the same vein as your patient who's broadening her field, trying to get used to new skills, playing guitar and in front of people, no less.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's the latest new skill that you have acquired?
Driving a Jeep.
Oh, here we go. Jeep life. Talk about your Jeep. Your Jeep is sick. I got to give it to you. Your Jeep is sick.
Thanks.
Yeah, you have. That's true. Lately, yeah, the Jeepness is strong in this one.
Yes. Yeah. So I've been messing around with the Wild West Jeep Club. I'm actually an officer in the club as a social media person for the Jeep Club. So
are you going to have a Jeep on here next podcast?
I mean, I could talk. And so there's events that the Jeep Club has, and they have been getting me out of my comfort zone on things I can drive over.
Very cool. Yeah, you do have some good pictures of you driving over things I wouldn't drive over.
Yeah, stuff I'd never imagined I could drive over.
Very cool.
So learning the skill of driving over cool stuff like that.
Okay, so here's another question. If you have a time machine, would you travel forwards or backwards?
Ooh. To address something in my own life? Or just in general?
You tell me. I don't know. He's going to go back and play baseball, people. For any reason at all.
I don't know. I'm as a life skill with my personal life, I've definitely been doing everything I can do to get out of thinking about what used to be and how stuff like that influence who I am today. So I think I would go forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
To like tomorrow?
I would go forward probably about 10 years.
And just see what's up?
And just kind of check in on that. Because like I said, I feel like I've done everything I ever wanted to do. And I don't really have anything left that I wanted to do. So at a 45-year-old guy, like I don't really have anything else I ever want to do. I've more than doubled all the things I thought I was capable of doing.
That's awesome.
So like, what do I have next? So I think it would be curious to see in the next 2 years. So it's not too far in case I have to change something.
Not going too far out of our comfort. Yeah. We're not going to the 3000s here. This dystopian future.
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. So let's ask this. If you had the option to know everything about the history of our Earth and the natural world, or know the exact time and place when and where aliens exist or existed, which would you choose?
I'm honestly not that interested in outside of our world.
This is enough for you. You are stimulated plenty here.
I think we have enough to learn about our own mother planet.
I like it.
And, you know, the traveling to Mars and like looking for all their stuff, like, doesn't necessarily interest me.
Okay.
But I do think that we are underserving our planet, and I think we could probably do better at that.
Is there anything specific about our history on Earth that you would be curious to know?
nothing jumps to mind, but it's really hard to get away from the science of evolution. And I think that and kind of jump track that's interesting to me. And I remember in college I had this conversation with a physics professor of mine, because I was really struggling with my religious upbringing. And I said, how do you go to church on Sunday knowing that, that's none of that's substantiated by science? And like, there's this whole list of evidence. And he was like, well, I take the approach that God created the way that a rose accepts water, and how that water gets transmitted into food, and how that food makes this rose grow. That God created all the avenues to make that happen. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting way to look at how a rose works. That God created all the little avenues, and we're just discovering the way that God created all that. So there's some religious stuff that kind of pops up, and how that relates to science.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I can think about.
Oh man, that could be a whole podcast right there. I would love to get into that, but we only have 9 minutes. So let's just keep moving. Stay tuned for that. Okay, but on the Earth question, so if you could choose between speaking every language that we have on planet Earth or communicating with animals, which would you choose?
That's easy.
Is it?
Yes.
You're going to say animals.
100%.
It's a good answer.
I mean, if Sully could talk to me, it would be perfect.
But doesn't Sully talk to you?
I mean, I like to think I know
you
what
and
he's
Sully
thinking.
communicate in a way that is meta language. It is beyond. It's more beautiful than words. I've seen it firsthand.
No, I think it'd be fun to talk to animals.
Another argument there is, I mean, in theory, you really could learn every language. But who wants to do that?
I mean, is there enough?
Would you
books
rather
on tape?
learn every language or play every instrument?
Definitely play instruments.
That was a giveaway. I don't know why I even asked that question. Okay, let's talk about music real quick to coming in here at the end. I know that's important for you. I'm curious, what was the first artist or song or album or musical experience that touched you as a kid that you were like, music?
Run DMC.
Shut up. That's amazing. How old were you?
I think 8.
8 was a big year for you. You found Run DMC and knew you were getting the hell out of Albuquerque.
My dad walks in with a cassette tape of Run DMC, and the first song is Walk This Way. And so he's a huge, what we would call classic rock, So at the time it was just rock.
Yeah.
So this brand new thing and rock at the same time was like revolutionary. And so that put Run DMC on the map, and then listen to the entire tape until it splits.
Yeah.
And just completely enamored with the beats, the lyrics, like just how confident, how cool these guys are, and just full-fledged in love with hip-hop. And that turns into just anything New York hip-hop I just was fully in love with.
I love it. What about a childhood hero?
Childhood hero.
An athlete, maybe, your role model? None come to mind?
None come to mind.
Just the fine boys of Run DMC? Okay. How about if there's the most or a valuable lesson that you've learned from one of your patients? Have you ever been injured yourself?
Yes, for
While
sure.
you were competing in
Yeah. And after the Ironman, when I kind of shut down physically, didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself physically.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of competitive softball and really hurt my knee doing that. that took a lot of
take some grit to get out of that.
Yeah. I had to get out of my own way on that.
Yeah, it's tough.
And yeah, that was tough.
How about a patient? Anybody that sticks out to you as having really taught you something?
You know, I learn all the time. I have a 6-year-old patient right now who I'm really thinking a lot about. She has a problem that is definitely real. I would never in a million years question whether or not she has pain or not. But all of the adults around her have scared her enough that every time she feels something she doesn't want to feel, she calls it pain. And so teaching a 6-year-old about pain and like how to be not necessarily tough, but like not all unpleasant symptoms are pain.
Recognizing discomfort as opposed to pain.
Yeah, it's okay to be uncomfortable.
That's a lot to teach a 6-year-old.
It is, and we're not going to get over this problem unless she understands the difference.
Yeah.
So she's teaching me some patience. She's teaching me how to crunch this pain information in a different way.
Yeah, that's very cool.
How to explain it a different way. Like, how do you teach a 6-year-old about pain? And, try to educate mom as much as I can. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do one more good question and then we'll wrap up here. Let's say if you could invite any 4 people to dinner, alive or dead, who's sitting at the table?
Alive or dead?
And are you cooking or are you going out?
For these people, I probably would want to go out.
Maybe get a home chef. Hire a home chef.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If I didn't think of that as an option.
Hey.
That's an option.
You just let me know when it comes down to planning. Okay? You get the invitations out.
Let's see. 4 people, dead or alive. Probably John Lennon.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Does he get a +1? Is Yoko coming?
I politely...
No. Disrespectfully decline +1s.
Respectfully decline Yoko. I think my dad would have my lunch for that. Second person would be probably my grandmother.
I love that answer.
My dad's mom that I never actually met. She held me, but she died in a car accident when I was really, really young.
Sorry.
So I
love that answer.
I have no recollection of her. And supposedly she was an amazing woman.
Well, obviously.
I mean, yeah. So, her and John Lennon's kind of an
that's
interesting...
a good start. That's a good start. Drinks are flowing. Who else is coming in? Ron's on the DJ. Who we got coming in the door next?
Let's see. Probably my brother.
Okay.
My brother is probably the funniest person I ever met.
I love it.
And I would love for him to be there.
Now, is he older than you? Younger
He's
than
younger.
You? Okay. So he's going to meet grandma too?
He'll meet grandma too.
That's very selfless of you.
That's what I was thinking. Like
family reunion.
He might want to meet her.
Okay.
And then probably somebody like, I would think somewhere. That's a good question. The thing that I keep thinking of is, what's his name from the Beastie Boys that died?
I do not know.
Adam Yauch.
Okay. Adam Yauch.
Yeah. He just always struck me as a really interesting guy.
Okay. We got John Lennon.
And, I never got to see the Beastie Boys because he died.
Do you think him and John are going to do a little number for you after dinner?
I don't know. That would be kind of cool.
You could play the triangle.
Yeah. Or maybe just sing.
Ooh, okay. That was another one of my questions. What does your imaginary band look like? What is the Ron Gallagher musical production? I know you have one in your head.
I dream of playing the drums.
You look like a drummer.
So yeah,
Just out there headbanging.
I would want to be,
Okay, you're the drummer.
Away. Yeah.
Do you have a band name?
No.
I'll think of one.
Okay, I like it.
Something cheerleader. I'll think of something.
Whoa.
Okay, well, I must thank you once again for allowing me the opportunity to interview you. It's been really such a joy. I've learned so much about you. I know you didn't, but you played it. You were great. So you finished with 2 questions on my interview. So I'm going to finish with 2 quick ones for you.
Okay.
The first one is, can we maybe look forward in the future to the official Icebox MVPT collaborative podcast episode with me and my girl and business partner, Laura? Shout out, Princess Laura Beth.
Of course.
On Instagram?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, love that.
That's easy.
And then the second question that I must end this interview with is, what are you listening to right now?
Listening to, let's see. I just got back from Nashville, and Black Pistol Fire is who I went to see. Black Pistol Fire was the band that these boys jumped up on stage with. I haven't been able to stop listening to them. So I'm still on Black Pistol Fire. Really sort of bluesy, hard rockish 2-piece.
Okay.
The drummer actually plays 2 foot pedals and keys at the same time. So he plays keyboard and drums at the same time.
Nice.
While the lead guy plays lead guitar and sings. And they're just phenomenal. Yeah.
So interesting, because in the clinic, I keep hearing Nelly Furtado, so I'm just confused by your answer.
Sometimes I get input from the people.
The people have spoken. Okay, well.
What about you?
What am I listening to?
Yeah, last time you said
I know, last time I had that big classical music, and if I were to tell the truth now.
You send a shockwave through
your system?
Through the peeps.
I'm listening to, I have a couple of things that are on my rotation right now. I have my own curated Spotify playlist called Moody Maddie. It's just a bunch of like Freddie Mercury and Elton John and like that kind of vibe that I'm always listening to. And then if I'm being really honest, I think if you pulled up my Spotify right now, the last thing I was listening to was Get Into It, Yeah, by Doja Cat. And also Butter by BTS. So that's I'm all across the spectrum. I've got classical and I've got Doja Cat.
Yeah, there's no genre out of your...
I do it all, baby. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for letting me get to know you and all your viewers. And I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, definitely.
On the Max Velocity PT podcast.
HYPERSPEED Radio.
HYPERSPEED Radio.
Peace.